Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. Today, Bianca Harmon's joining me as a guest host. We have Chris Kenefick. But before we do the full introduction, brief sponsor message. Today's episode sponsored by Barrels Ahead. Barrels Ahead, we help wineries scale through authentic content. And if you're interested, we're just rolling out a brand new service to the wineries, helping them launch their own evergreen podcast. If that's something that interests you, check it out. Today, we have Chris Kenefick. Chris is the second generation's proprietor and CEO of Kenefick Family Winery and Vineyard. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. So, Chris, talk to us about being a second generation proprietor.
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey to get to where we are today. Our family has had our property since 1980, so it's been quite a long time that we've been up in Calistoga. I came on board in 2016 and have been out here for about 7 years now, and stepped into my current role about 2 years ago. So yeah, it's been an exciting time, especially with a lot of the changes going on in the valley. So there's always something new every day and every year. So it's been fun.
Yeah, talk to us about those changes. So you grew up on the vineyard and then left for a while and were in hospitality. What brought you back?
Over the years, obviously, growing up in Napa was kind of interesting because I actually didn't enjoy it very much because I really didn't have an appreciation for the land, and I just knew it kind of as this dusty place with a lot of snakes and spiders and not a ton to do otherwise. So I took the opportunity to go away to college in Denver, where I studied hospitality management. From there, I started working for the Four Seasons Hotel Group and worked for them for about 6 years. Kind of through college, and then as I was getting into my adult life, I really started to appreciate wine in general, but also wine as I was starting to try out a lot of other things. And I would, go to the local wine store in Colorado or the local liquor shop and get a $15, $20 bottle of wine that could be very hit or miss, but I was just trying as much random stuff as I possibly could. Kind of diversifying my palate from there started to make me realize that we're actually producing some pretty good wines here, and Napa is definitely something very special. So I had an interest in coming back eventually and going through hospitality. It was long hours, and just kind of got to the point where Napa was calling my name and just wanted to change the scene. So 2016 made the switch up here, and it's been great ever since.
That's amazing. It's always absence makes the heart grow fonder. I mean, everyone wants to get out of their hometown until they leave their hometown. They're like, wasn't so bad. What about? It's like you went on your national sales director for Canada. How were you doing a lot of national sales at the time before you came on?
We were. So my really how we got started with our wine brand, we started our own label in 2002. And this was really my dad's second career after a surgeon in San Francisco. So he was coming up and doing a lot of the farming from 1980 all the way until 2000. But we were selling off all the fruit that we were producing on the property. 2000, he retired and moved up to Calistoga full time. And then we did our first vintage under our own label in 2002. So it really started as kind of a hobby and a passion project for him. We kind of jokingly say that our best sales were in the states that he really enjoyed traveling to. And so if you looked especially at the early years, we were very popular in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming because these were places that he enjoyed going to. So as that kind of progressed and a real company and a real wine brand that we have instead of being solely a hobby more, we've continued to really be strong in distribution. We're in about 15 or 16 different markets throughout the US and internationally. And of the wines that we produce, about 80% of those are sold through distribution, and then about 20% are direct to consumer.
Oh, wow. Is that evolved over the years to more direct to consumer, or the opposite?
It has, yeah. We obviously in the beginning there are a lot of different ways to launch a wine brand, or a lot of different methods to go about things here in the valley. How my dad chose to do it is that he wanted to get on the road and really showcase the wine out there to try to get as much reach as possible. Obviously, if you start to see a wine on a bunch of shelves in bottle shops or in restaurants, you're going to start to key into that a little bit more. And his thought was that that would then drive people directly to us through our website or through calling in where they could purchase the wine. So over the years, it's the DTC has continued to grow, which has been really nice. But it always started out basically at, probably 95% distribution, just a little bit direct to consumer. And so that's grown over the years.
And has it grown more since you've come on board, do you think, in 2016?
I would like to hope so. I really starting in national sales, I was primarily focused on our distribution. So I know our volume has grown since I started. Where that actually relates to some of the direct consumer sales, it's continued to move up. I don't know if I would say that I was the big impact that really got everybody to sign up for our wine club and everything, but yeah, it has continued to grow since I got here.
Very good. As far as production, so you were selling off all the grapes and you had long-term contracts. Talk to us about managing kind of those contracts and bringing more of your juice in-house and how you're managing that today.
Yeah, so we have about 118 acres planted or 118 plantable acres on the property. Our total property is about 250 acres. So about half the property is hillside that we're not allowed to plant on. Anything over a 5% slope in Napa, unless it's been grandfathered in, you're not allowed to plant vines on it. So we have about 118 plantable acres. Through the years, we've always sold quite a bit to other people. Really in the 90s, we were starting to get a lot of notoriety selling to Barons and Hitchcock, and Pride and Robert Mondavi and quite a few others. It's definitely always been an important part of our business and something that we really try to maintain as best as possible. Like I was saying before, we still do about 9% of the fruit that we grow on property. We sell off to other wineries. So we're only taking about 10%. It becomes a very interesting chess game that we can have a hour discussion on, but it's definitely a lot of long-term planning that you have to start looking into as some of the blocks on the property get older and you have people who you're selling to that might be doing a vineyard designate. You need to find a new home for them. And so it's a big shuffle that you have to do around the property to make sure that the clients that you have, the people that we're selling fruit to, that we get them on board.
And so how many cases are you guys getting roughly if you're selling off that much?
We're usually doing between about 2,500 and 3,000 cases of everything that we do a year. So everything is really small production. About that really is our Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc. Cabernet Sauvignon, we usually do about 800 to 1,000 cases of. Sauvignon Blanc is about 500 to 600 cases of. And then everything else is really under 300 cases. Once you get into some of these weird, obscure whites that we do, that we only produce about 25 to 30 cases of. So it gets
what are some examples of those?
So the first winemaker that we ever had on the property was a big fan of Rhone varietals and really thought that some of the white Rhone varietals would grow really well on the property. So he convinced my dad to start to plant some Grenache Blanc, Marsanne, and Viognier. And so we do a standalone Grenache Blanc, and then we do what's called our Picket Road White, which is a Rhone style white blend that's mainly Grenache Blanc with a little bit of Marsanne and Viognier mixed into it.
Yum.
That's got to be really tasty.
Yeah.
I want to talk about back to the contracts again and how the different wineries manage it. Do the contracts get rows or do they get production of juice? Like, are they managing their own vines within your vineyard?
We do all the vine management and all the vineyard work that's in the vineyard. We have our own farming team and farming crew that we had actually. The foreman started in the early 80s with us. So he's literally been working there for longer than I've been alive. So we've always been really proud to have kind of our family of farmers there that are maintaining everything. How the contracts work are that people will designate either rows or blocks that we have available, can sell to them. And then based on historical data based on how that vintage is going. We'll try to estimate approximately how many tons it's going to be. Then when harvest time comes, we work with the wineries to pick a harvest date and make sure everything is to their liking and fits with our schedule. We pick the fruit and then deliver it to the winery. And then it's for them to process and turn into wine.
Oh, very interesting.
That's awesome. And so you're kind of leading this now, right? Now that your father's passed on, this is all you.
Yep. So my sister lives full-time in New York, and she has her own job there. She works for an executive search firm. And then my wife also obviously lives with me here in the Valley, but works for a different company. So both of them definitely like to chime in as much as they possibly can and give all the advice that they can. And I look to them for a lot of advice because it's good to have as many eyes on things as possible. But really when it comes to day-to-day management and the majority of the decisions, that's kind of all on my shoulders.
For sure. So carrying on the family legacy, what sort of thumbprint are you putting on the Kenefick family ranch?
We definitely want to keep things as traditional, I guess, as possible, or as consistent as possible. I think one of the worst things that I could do would be to come in and completely turn the brand on its head and either charge triple what we were charging before or go in a completely different direction than we wanted to or than what my father had started. We've always been a very close family, and so both my sister and I listened to my dad quite a bit and listened to his videos. And while I was here, I had about 4 years of working side by side with him, so I definitely picked up as much as possible. But I'm really more or less carry on his legacy, not do too many massive changes. Obviously, there are some kind of fun things that we can play with, but the vineyard site and the wine itself is already in such a great place and such a great brand and a great value for the wine that there's really not a lot of changes that we want to do with that.
I mean, look at your store. It's a tremendous value, especially saying triple the price. If you triple the price, you're going to be about what everybody thinks the Napa Valley Cabernet should be.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun going to some of the tastings and, before telling people the price, you'll pour the wine and they'll be like, yeah, I think, that's good. I think it's probably about $175 or so. And you're like, oh, actually it's $65 is our cap. So being a grower and really having control of the fruit source, we're able to keep those prices as reasonable as possible. Obviously Napa is expensive in general. So when I say a $65 bottle of wine, I find that reasonable, but obviously it's not be reasonable to everyone everywhere in the country.
I have a question in regards to, the growers that you're selling the grapes to. Is it the same ones every year, or is it kind of rotating, or do you have others that are allowed to come on because somebody else dropped off? How does that all work?
Yeah, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but a lot of the people that we sell to really like getting the fruit. So we rarely have somebody who just comes in for a year just to purchase some fruit to fill a gap and then leave. Typically we have the people who we're selling to want to continue to buy fruit year after year. And then there are quite a few people who continue kind of knock at the door and wanting to get into any fruit that becomes available. That being said, obviously, as prices change or as we move along, every now and then you do have somebody who drops out. But I would say, from when I started here full time in 2016 till now, we've maybe had 5% change of people either that dropped out and we brought somebody new in. But about 95% of the fruit that we're selling right now is still going to the same people that it was 7 years ago.
Like that legacy is so important. So important. I want to kind of shift and talk about marketing and PR for a moment. We got to give a good shout out to Hemsworth Communications for connecting us with you. But talk to us about the importance of a winery engaging in a PR firm and kind of what you're doing to market Kenefick.
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm doing and being a brand of our size is really just getting out on the road and trying to meet as many people as possible and fly the flag as much as I possibly can. We're obviously not a brand that is a massive thing that we're going to take out a billboard space, in San Francisco to get our name out there.
Mhm.
So it's really one customer at a time, is how we're building our brand. Hemsworth, we started working with a couple of years ago, and they've been amazing. I mean, it's great to have somebody out there who is connecting me with people like you, or connecting us with other writers throughout the country, and really helping to get our name out there. So it's been great working with them.
That's good. Now, yeah, as far as getting the name out, I mean, you're basically selling all the wine that you can sell, but you need to keep the name with every new winery coming out. How have they gone about keeping that name, and what advice would you have for another small family-owned winery that wants to get the name out?
The best advice I could give, and this was really advice that was given to me, is that you being a small brand, you have to sell your product really one bottle at a time, or one customer at a time. So there really isn't a magic formula as far as I'm going to produce 10,000 cases of my cab and it better sell overnight. That just really doesn't exist for smaller producers. And so it's taking the time, going in, meeting customers one time, and really trying to get your name out there as best as possible.
Really shaking hands. And you've got I was looking at your store, and you've got some unique tasting packs, like these virtual tastings. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't have a physical tasting room on the property. We're looking to do that hopefully down the road. But obviously with the county, there are a lot of hoops to jump through. So one of the big things that came about during the pandemic was that people started offering virtual tasting packs and virtual experiences for tastings. So it's really nice to be able to basically offer a 6-pack of wine that you have 3 bottles in there that you're going to taste with the person or group that's buying the wine, and then they have 3 bottles to hold on to and enjoy later. So we sell them in 3 different wines in a 6-pack, so you get 2 bottles each. With that, myself or another member on the team kind of takes the time and tells a little bit about our background, our story, and through your wine. So it's been really nice. It was a big hit during the pandemic, and that's really continued to go after the pandemic. But for people who may not necessarily want to take the time to come all the way out to Napa, this is a way to more or less bring Napa to you into your home. So yeah, it's been a very big hit.
Yeah,
So in regards to not having like your tasting room and offering just the virtual tastings, how are you growing like your wine club and all of those aspects if people aren't able to taste?
Yeah. So we try to take part in as many local events as possible, and then events around the country. I'm next week up in Missoula doing a wine dinner. And so we look for those opportunities as much as possible to basically take our wines to people. Since we can't do anything here on site. We had, I think it was a week or 2 ago, there was the Calistoga Winegrowers puts on quite a few events. So we had an event at the Four Seasons Hotel that's up in Calistoga. And that's just a great opportunity for us to go out and kind of show our wines and introduce people to the brand.
That's good. I'm so happy to see these virtual tastings kept going on after the pandemic, because there's such a great way to bring your wines to people that they want to experience Napa, but they can't take a vacation. And they may be, and with inflation and everything, they may be crafting their own staycation and making the virtual tasting part of it.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, you'll see people get, a group of 10 people or so together and kind of all collectively do this tasting. One that I did somewhere recently, they basically streamed it onto the TV in their living room. So I was doing the whole presentation and telling everybody about it in front of kind of a large room. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. We did a couple of years back that we're going to hopefully do again, as we paired up with Truffle Shuffle in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
To basically have them guide you through a cooking class. But it was also a meal that was paired with our wine. So we got to talk about our wines kind of in the beginning, and then the Truffle Shuffle team took over and guided people through creating a dinner. And so it's those kind of experiences that were great that everybody discovered during the pandemic. And then it's nice that they've stuck around.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Let's talk about your certifications. So I know you're certified as fish friendly ranching in Napa Green.
Yeah. So, fish friendly farming and Napa Green certified. Basically, what those two are doing is trying to leave as little impact on the land as possible. So trying to limit the amount of herbicides, pesticides that you're using, or using the most responsible products that you possibly can. More or less, it's a step under if you were to want to go to an organic farm, and then from there, obviously, if you were go to the most extreme, would be biodynamic farming. So it's a way of just trying to be as responsible as possible and trying to look out for the land and hopefully being able to pass it on to future generations.
What are the requirements for fish friendly?
It's basically looking at how much runoff you have off your property, making sure that it's going the proper channels, whether you're not using certain chemicals that are on the property that kind of fit their list.
Interesting.
Oh, very good. So gotta kind of go back. So I know you're raised in the wine industry and hospitality. What excites you most about wine?
Oh man. Everything. I guess the diversity of wine, the challenges every year that it faces. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about how every year is different, and even saying how one year might be similar to another year, and the excitement as the vintage is building and really getting to see what's going to change. But this is very far from just a 9 to 5, and I know exactly what is going to happen every day. There's always something new, and at every different time of the season, there's a different challenge that presents itself. So it keeps you on your toes, and then at the end of the day, you get to open wine, and so it's always a nice reward to have and kind of see where all your hard work paid off. So it's a nice light at the end of the tunnel.
That sounds good. When at the end of the day, what type of wines do you gravitate to?
It depends on the day of the week. I'll typically be drinking our wine just because it's the house wine is quite good, so that's pretty easy to enjoy. I really like everything. My wife is a big fan of sparkling wine, and I jokingly say that in my first month of dating her, I consumed more sparkling wine than I had in my whole life before up to that point. So we'll have sparkling every now and then. We really like to have wines from other areas. It's great to compare our wines to wines from France or Italy or Spain and just see how they compare, see how they differ, and just be able to enjoy different things. So it really depends on the day of the week, what we're cooking for dinner, the weather, so many different factors. But it's nice
is a sparkling wine in the future of your winemaking career?
I have thought about it and started to kind of toy around with it. Where we are in Calistoga, unfortunately, it's too hot to be able to grow any kind of Chardonnay or Pinot because they're too thin-skinned of grape varietals. So they unfortunately don't do well in Calistoga. So I've looked around for sparkling Grenache Blanc varietals that I can try just to compare and see if they're good. And I'm planning on reaching out to a couple different places just to see if we can do a really small lot of something just to try it out as a test run, and then hopefully be able to expand to a sparkling at some point, because that would be really fun.
I love sparkling Grenache. I think Williamson Winery in Healdsburg. Have you heard of them? They make a sparkling Grenache.
Nice. Okay.
And so they make a sparkling Grenache, a sparkling Syrah. So they'd be a good place to just kind of taste or check out.
Yeah.
If you've never.
Yeah. One person found, surprisingly, a sparkling Grenache Blanc and had us try it, and it was really good. So it would be interesting to see if we can pull that off our property, because it's such a great palate cleanser in the beginning, and such a nice thing to enjoy either as before you're going into a dinner or just something start off a tasting.
Sure. How many acres of Grenache do you have planted? Grenache Blanc?
Oh, I would have to look, but we had just pulled some out this last year, but it's literally less than an acre. I think we have a half an acre or so. So we only usually get about 3 to 4 tons of Grenache Blanc. And we work really closely with Hayfork Winery here in St. Helena. And so they do a standalone Grenache Blanc as well. So both of ours are very small production, but yeah, there's not a lot of it out there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your vision. If you could flash forward 15 years, everything goes your way. What does Kenefick Winery look like?
Hopefully by that time we would have a winery and tasting room built on our property. I think that's kind of the biggest focus that I have is really, that was my dad's dream, and he was working on that for quite a long time. And so that would be, really the next big step that would happen. After that, or besides that, and more thinking about the property, it's really trying to maintain best as possible. I am not, kind of like I was saying before, I'm not really thinking to blow up or expand our volume as much as possible. If we were to take everything off the property and produce it all for ourselves, we would have somewhere around 30,000 cases, which obviously into quite a bigger size of a winery as opposed to our 3,000 case PR. So it'd be nice to grow the volume a little bit, but only maybe, 1,000 or 2 cases more to get to a 5,000 case production. So a little bit of growth for our wines, building winery and tasting room on our site, and then just trying to maintain the land as best as possible so that we can pass it to the next generation.
Absolutely. And in that undeveloped land, does that have to remain open space due to the laws?
Yeah. So you can't plan on it. Some of it comes right down to the vineyard. I would have to look and see if you're allowed to have a building on it or something like that. Never be able to, nor would we want to sell it and have, like a condo complex or something.
That's part of the charm of Calistoga. So going forward, I've seen Calistoga evolve tremendously over the last 20 years. What would be your ideal vision for Napa and Calistoga as it continues to evolve?
Yeah, I love where Napa is today, and obviously with the popularity that it has, it's going to continue to, I would assume, grow in popularity and continue to build out a little bit more. It's definitely weird, and I feel like I sound like an old man, but when I was a kid, I walked from our property into the town of Calistoga and the Calmart to pick up lunch, and I would walk by this big cow pasture that was kind of right across from our property. That's now a luxury resort instead of a cow pasture anymore. So you definitely see a lot of changes that are happening. I'm in support of it. I think it's great to have, these luxury resorts and luxury wine brands, and the wines that people are producing all over the valley are amazing. So it's definitely something to be celebrated. I think Calistoga has done a really good job of maintaining its roots and keeping with that small town feel, and really haven't blown up too much, even though now we have quite a few of those big resorts that are in town. But I think Calistoga has done a really good job of staying true to their roots. So that would be my hope, that that's what continues to support the small community.
On the side of the winery where you're, as far as winemaking over the last 20 years, how have you seen the winemaking style evolve?
So we've only had 2 winemakers through our 20-year history. Our first winemaker, Josh Krupp, was only around for 2 or 3 years, and then he moved out of the country. And so at that time, we were introduced to our current winemaker, Kent Jarman. He used to be the assistant winemaker at Duckhorn. And he came in and has been an outstanding winemaker for us. Obviously, your first year or 2, you're kind of messing around with the vineyard and the different blocks and seeing what might work well. And my dad's style of making wine, he definitely wanted the massive body of wine that would age for 30, 40 years and be kind of a very large in your face wine. In the recent years, we've really tried to soften that up a little bit more and be something that still has the ageability to it, but is also something that's approachable, that you open midweek and didn't have to decant it for 2 hours before enjoying. At the same time, some of those older wines that we have, it's really fun to go back and open those because they're aging really, really well. So it's nice to have that balance. But yeah, Kent's done an amazing job of handling each vintage. And our winemaking style hasn't necessarily changed too much through the years, but it's trying to make the best possible product from each vintage and dealing with Mother Nature gives you that year.
So is your doctor's cuvee your punch in your face because your father was the doctor?
He was the doctor. It's definitely still that punch in your face, but it has a really, really nice elegance to it. It's 100% new French oak, so there's a lot of structure. We have tried to hold it back as much as possible. So our current vintage on that is 2015, and so it's had that time to kind of develop and settle a little bit more. So it's drinking really nice right now and does have quite a bit of elegance to it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's all about refinement. If you've only got a fixed amount of land and you're only going to be doing a fixed amount of cases, it's just about the subtle nuances every year moving them forward.
Mm-hmm.
So opening it up, being a little more approachable, very understandable there. I'm going to shift to you and your history. We talked to a lot of second generation kids. What advice would you have someone that's like pulling the coop? They're considering going back to the family winery.
Learn as much as possible before coming back. I don't have any regrets, obviously coming back and joining the family business. Something that my dad was kind of joking around that I could have or should have done is really at least do an internship or some time at a different winery before coming on board with us. Because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge about how our vineyard works and our production, but outside of that, I haven't had the experience of working at other wineries. So it's, if somebody was looking for a recommendation or advice, I would say do a little bit of time at other places just so you can bring in that outside knowledge. You may be able to teach your family something if you're bringing that in from somewhere else.
I think
but then always
important.
Yeah. The biggest thing is always being open to learning and open to adapting and seeing what kind of changes need to be made and trying to implement those as best as possible.
I think there's also some importance, like going out and carving your own path for a little bit versus kind of flowing straight into the family business. You never really get a chance to separate yourself and become a little bit more independent. So some of the advice I hear is go do your own thing for a couple of years, go figure it out, and then come back with this new intellect versus just being forced straight in. And that may be advice to parents too, forcing your kids straight into the business.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really, really good experience getting out and working for Four Seasons, which is obviously a large company and a corporate company. And so it was interesting to see that style of doing things. And then coming back in and working with family, which has just a whole different way of doing things. So it's, as much experience as you can get is great. And just always listening, always be open to any changes.
Very good. Very good. Talking about fun. So do you ever, do you try to couple, just like your dad, the states that you like to visit with the tastings?
Yep. Montana is probably still our best state that we sell to. I when I was traveling a lot more kind of pre-pandemic, I basically, unless there's a large event going on or anything, you can more or less choose your schedule and choose what markets to visit at what times during the year. You obviously always want to have a business mindset with that. So you want to focus on when you're going to be able to sell the most wines. But I very frequently would look at, if I'm going to Chicago, I would start to look and I'm like, all right, I can go in one of these couple months. That might work. Well, when are the Giants playing the Cubs? Maybe I can pair that up and go to a game or something. So I would always try to look and when there were either fun sporting events or if it was a place that had skiing or something, I would be able to take a day at the end of my trip and go skiing for a day or go play golf or something. So it's important to have a little fun while you're out there working. And I've tried to mix that in as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a very holistic type experience, wine and food and fun. Saw you just recently up at Teton Country Club on Instagram. Maybe that was a little while back.
I think that was a little while ago, but we've done really well in Jackson Hole. And that's another one of those markets that we were already in Montana, and so Jackson was kind of right there. And my dad got connected with somebody, and he loved the mountains, and so it was a very easy place for him to go to. So again, for me, I would look at when I could do a wine dinner that was in the winter, or if I wanted to go fishing, look for something in the summer to kind of help have a little bit of fun while we were working.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, gosh, Chris, so where can people find out more about you and Kenefick Winery?
So the best place is through our website, KenefickRanch.com. And we have all of our information there, all the wines that are offered. We also have information about our wine club or just signing up for our mailing list. So quite a few different options. We only have a handful of wines that are such a small production that they're more or less allocated or for wine club. But besides that, anybody is free to go on and order any of the wines through the website. So we like having them be available to everybody and not have to have a mandatory sign up or anything to be able to get wines.
That's great. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to bring up before we kind of close this show down?
Not really. I mean, like I was just saying, the wine club is a really nice way to keep up to date on any news that's happening around the property, or keep kind of the latest vintages in mind, or when we're starting to ship out a new vintage. So if people are interested, I would definitely encourage them to sign up for that and just be able to try the wines.
Or order up a virtual tasting for sure.
There you go. Yeah. Best way to learn.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great
conversation.
Chris.
Yeah, of course. Thank you both. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.